How are you doing? I'm your dear host, Isabel Alejandra Paulina Sofía Eduardo Manuela de todos los Andes. And welcome to Clash Study. So in economy, he created an unstable economy because of the international relationships he cut. In politics, many laws were created, such as the anti-loafing law, which brought many changes. Socially, this society was falling down with all the drastic alternations in the country. Culturally, close culture in the country was banned from external interaction. From this, we can learn not to repeat history.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm Roberto, a very tired journalist who Castro has been putting to do a lot of work. And today I will be talking about the Cuban society. So, during Castro's government, all the mass organizations and revolutionary groups were made illegal. All the newspapers, TV channels, and radio channels were controlled by the government. This meant that the society had really no way of knowing what was truly happening with their country. Also, they were believing whatever the government wanted them to believe. These urban confrontations lasted around 6 years, and around 250,000 troops were sent by Castro to stop these rebels.
The economic effects and changes in the communist government of Fidel Castro. In exchange, the citizens in Cuba were not required to pay taxes, and the government decided to give free education and free health. The United States banned all negotiations with Cuba. Fidel Castro fined Hugo Chavez, who helped him with the petroleum and generates over $800 million a year that were invested all in arms.
So, are we agreeing on this?
Yes.
¡The baby's coming! ¡Ay, chico!
Never mind, falsa.
Ajá, ¿qué te pasa?
The embargo was a commercial, economical, and financial embargo imposed by the United States to the government of Cuba.
Cultural interaction. During this time in the Cold War, Cuba was directly affected and influenced by books, music, television, movies, and other sources of the media, including sports, ethnics, and other social beliefs. One of the greatest things that the Cubans feared was about the great possibility of a nuclear war and the espionage. We can say that because of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the Cubans and the Soviets were against the USA, this caused panic in the society of the Cubans because it could lead into a third world war. This made that a lot of people start immigrating to the USA because the economy of Cuba dramatically dropped, and the manipulation of the media and society was so drastic until the point that every person or group that opposed to the ideology of the government or Fidel Castro was getting killed.
So we don't know how harshly it affected Cuba all the bad decisions made during this time, but do we actually know how it affected the rest of the world? Let's talk about the international impact. About the fight between USA and Cuba, Castro resentfully decided to cut off the US only because they decided to help Batista while they were in the fight with Fidel Castro. So this decision Castro made led Cuba to a worst time ever. They had economical problems and political issues. This was really bad and Castro was really desperate. The US didn't back up. They sent spies to Cuba because they were really concerned. Cuba cut them off. They weren't able to commerce there. They weren't able to even go there. The USSR took advantage of this. They asked Castro if they could plant missiles inside Cuba, and Castro, without hesitation, accepted. US spies noticed the missiles, and they went instantly and told the USA about it. The USA decided to send planes to Cuba so they could realize what was going on. But Castro noticed this, so he threatened the USA. He told them that if they didn't put the planes out, they will shot the missiles at them. But the USA said that they wouldn't take the planes off if they didn't take off the missiles. So they came to an agreement. They both did what everyone wanted, and they were back in peace. So Castro was desperate, really desperate about Cuba's problem. So he decided to invite Chavez to Havana. He went there and they became really close friends. Chavez was really looking forward to meeting Castro. He looked him as a role model. And Castro even helped him with Venezuela's political issues. He sent troops from Cuba to Venezuela to help him. So Chavez, as a thankful gift, he signed a treaty that said that Venezuela was going to give free petroleum to Cuba. This was a huge win for Cuba. They could fix their economical issues. They were back to normal. There was no more poverty, no more hunger. They were okay.
Hello there. I'm Mr. Rosso. I'm an 80-year-old Cuban. Oh, my back. Oh, thank you, young lady. You know, I used to be young like you once. Back in the 1960s. So long ago. Things were very different. Now you kids with your crazy music and your crazy dancing, you don't understand what it was like for us back then. Yes, the Cold War. A hard time indeed, with all the fighting and the complications. When Fidel became president, everything in Cuba just fell apart. I remember one night, it was very late. My neighbor, he was against the government, a good old capitalist. He started expressing himself in social meetings and on the streets, everywhere he had a chance to. Then one night, I saw police lights coming through my window. Then I heard screaming coming from the house up front. I looked out my window and I saw him take him away. I never saw him again. I've always wondered what happened to him, but I'm guessing it wasn't good. Well, anyways, life was hard, as you can see. It affected Cuba grandly, with all the people moving away to the U.S. and all the loss of jobs. Caused even more harm to the country. This hardest part is that the government didn't even learn from all the harm done. That's because the government didn't even suffer. All the people, all the citizens who lost their lives, their families, their homes, they are the ones who suffered. Isn't that unfair? The people, the innocent people, they had to deal with all the damage and all the harm done. And they were the ones that learned from all the suffering they went through. But Cuba can still improve if the government would pay attention and listen to the people who actually suffered. The citizen, Cuba could really learn and grow together. But nothing will change with Raul. We'll go back to what we always had.
Hello there. We're going to talk about politics in Cuba. Cuba was a communist country with a Marxist-Leninist ideologies. That ideologies started in the 60s with the Castro family. That the Castro family was the people that controls Cuba and all his movements.
Fidel Castro, one of the two brothers who was in charge of the 26th of July movement, rose into power after he and his brother overthrew Fulgencio Batista, the president at the time of the revolution. With the help of the Che Guevara and thousands of supporters, the Castro brothers were able to take Batista out of the country by 1959.
After Fidel became president of Cuba, he terrorized other rebellious groups to secure his presidency. Anyone who opposed to him was mostly tortured or most of them were killed.
At the same time, Fidel decided to cut political relationships with the U.S. He hadn't been Cuba's president for that long, but all he knew was that he wanted a future without the U.S. in it.
The relationship between Cuba and the U.S. was very deteriorated. So eventually, U.S. make many process with laws to block trading with Cuba.
When Cuba found themselves in a complicated economical situation, they got a proposal from the USSR to make an alliance. This alliance supported them politically and economically. This was a great alliance for Cuba. They got petroleum for trading and they had a strong political ally.
So Cuba became ally of the USSR. So the USA started to make plans to destroy Castro's position in the presidency of Cuba.
This increased Castro's distrust in the US and provoked what would later be called as the Cuban Missile Crisis. So they kicked us out. We have no budget. Anyways, let's continue.
The operation that Castro put into the island was eventually too bad, so the people started to flee the country. The Castro opposed to that first, but next he said he allowed the people to go and knowing that the people going to die. You are not allowed to go to US. Okay, let's go.
I'm going. Welcome to the US! What the people?
Around 80,000 people died. Between 1965 and 1985, those people died.
From 1959 to 1980, freedom flights were created to help Cubans escape from their country. The massive immigration problem went from 1959 to 1993. The immigration problem was still present, the USSR dissolved. This left Cuba with the greatest economical crisis that they have faced in history.
So Castro became friend of Chavez, making a good political and economical alliance. So Venezuela gave petroleum to Cuba and they produced many amount of money.
Cuba's president is Raúl Castro. He has been president since 2008 when his brother Fidel had to retire because of an illness he has. Raúl is president until now, although he assures he will leave the charge in 2018.
In conclusion, there are several bad decisions made for Cuba during this time. In economy, in culture, and politics made them unstable. For example, in economy, because of the betrayal USA made for Cuba, Cuba decided to cut them off, and that made them miserable. Socially, Cuba was unhappy because of everything that was happening there. So the society decided to rebel, and because of that, many deaths were happening. In politics, Castro was the greatest influencer for the government, that his way of guiding the country affected many parts of the society. With the lack of international relationships, Cuba had a really unstable economy. The lack of international relationships Cuba had culturally, since Castro was controlling the newspapers and radio channels, the people weren't able to know what was truly happening in their country. Cubans can learn from this experience and don't make the same mistakes again. Want a cookie? It's mine.